started, I'm a transplant to the area too. So I didn't have a giant sphere. Oh, I think I got muted somehow. uh, yeah, so I don't have a big sphere in the area. I wasn't in a bunch of clubs or church events or groups or anything like that. So starting out, it was the nitty gritty. It's getting on the phones and making phone calls, hosting open houses for team members or any listing that I could get my hands on to host an open house, do the activities, door knocking around those open houses, circle prospecting around those open houses. I will say that, unrealistically, I was blessed with the ability to be able to not have a ton of income in my first year. My wife is a PA at the hospital, so she was able to help at least get me jump started into that. And now that my business is where it's at, she's been actually able to back off a little bit. So
I'm curious, in the first couple years, sources of business looked like what for you?
yeah, so a lot of it is, here at the Ryan Hansen Homes team, we have a fairly big database to be able to call out of. So there was at least, I never had to worry about who am I going to call. There was always at least a phone number that I could dial. I could do it 1,000 dial day. When I first started, until I got an appointment, like I'd never been without a check every 2 weeks since I was probably like 10. I mean, I mowed lawns, I did lemonade stands. Like I was finding money from when I was very young because I came from a single mother household who if I wanted anything other than the clothes on my back, I better figure out how to get it myself. So going from that mindset of like, hey, you've got to grind to get that, that's how I kind of took into real estate. So if I didn't have appointments, I was on the phone. So there would be a number of days when I first started, 8, 9 hours of it was me on the phone and just calling unqualifieds, calling into ponds that people have been reached out to 4 years ago and they've bought and sold two houses since the last time our team has reached out to them. But just continued to follow up, took my beatings on the phone where, you're learning and getting better at scripting and things like that. But just,
I
uh,
mean,
you
was
know,
it was it successful? Did you have closings from calling the pond?
yeah, I would say my first year I was at 14 closings or something like that. So started in April and before December I ended up with 14 just by calling out of the pond, hosting a couple of Ryan's open houses and getting a lead or two there. But I never closed my first open house lead until like 2.5 years later. So there was a lot of like frustration in like hosting open houses and doing all of the activities right away and feeling like that didn't come to fruition. And then as I was in the business long enough, just nurture those clients, stay on top of them, do the playbook that place gives us. And all of a sudden I've closed, a number of those people that have been 2, 3 year relationships now. So I mean, I closed one just last month that it was kind of one of those really good feeling ones where you're like, hey, we've been doing this for 3 years. We've stayed in touch. Like you weren't qualified. We did everything we could to fix your credit. Like you feel like part of the family almost. And yeah, it was only like $170,000 property. So nothing that, broke the bank. But honestly, that one feels better than, the $1 million one sometimes.
I hear you. Um, what did you change in your business last year? Specifically switching from being buyer heavy to being more seller heavy. I guess what did you switch? Like, how did you actually actively be able to do that? Like, s tactically, strategically, mentally, what did that look like? And why did you do it?
Yeah, great question. So, starting out and working with buyers right away, I felt like, one, that was the way the team was organized and set up to do. And I really appreciated that because there's so much in real estate that you're still learning as you're going. And, a buyer, you're able to get through that a little bit easier than a seller. There's a lot more liability on the seller side. There's a lot more moving parts to that, just even getting a listing up and onto the MLS. So just kind of learning and stayed focused there. And as much as I was comfortable there and making a decent living, I realized very quickly that when it comes to, I'd have sporadic listings throughout that, even though I was more buyer heavy, that on a listing, I'm able to control my time even a little bit more because I'm not having to go out and do a ton of showings. Like, yes, I'm still going on showings. I'm still working with buyers. I'm still showing my own properties,
Sure.
but I can get a sale where I didn't have to show the property as well. So, the biggest thing for me and my family at this point in time is that we can have that family time. Having that many little ones that close together, and both me and my wife working professional jobs and takes up a lot of time. Making sure somebody is there when, hey, daycare called at 6 a.m. and says, hey, we're not open today. and being able to take care of that was really important. So by able to buy my time back, I've noticed that with listings, once you get it onto the MLS, I have a little bit more freedom. Where if I have working with a ton of buyers, they're only going to get something done if I'm taking them out to a house.
Hmm.
So it's a lot more of time constraints there. So with that, I wanted to make sure that I was able to do that. So what I did to kind of switch my business up a little bit is honestly in my circumstances, what you focus on, comes to fruition. So when I was just out there hunting in the pond for whatever, you kind of got whatever. And then as you maybe target an area, you're able to get more from that area. So then as I started to really hone down, I'm like, hey, I'm going to get market report viewers. I'm going to search for these people who have been in their home for longer than, 7 years and start really focusing on who normally sells a property and then focus that prospecting onto that. You're really able to kind of drum those up and then just getting better at asking questions and finding out people's motivations. Every market is so hyper local, but one of our biggest problems in our area is motivation. Most
Mm.
people in our area don't have to do anything. They have to want to do it. So even, especially as interest rates were, up and high, a lot of these people were like, yeah, well, we don't really need that other bedroom or whatever the thing is. The pain wasn't great enough to get people to move. So by really being able to dig in and find the people that were the most motivated and the people who had to move, job relocations, some of those kind of things, I was really able to focus and make that switch from buyer heavy to seller heavy. And then this year, actually, it ended up being exactly 50-50. So I had helped as
That's
many buyers as I did sellers to the exact number, but just hoping that trend. The other part of, knowing that my want to be seller heavy is people call. It's a lot better to answer your phone than to dial it. I feel like sometimes. So having signs out there and being able to have a body call you right away instead of you calling 50 people and three of them answer and two of them are cranky is, not a bad deal.
somebody should write that down, right? It's a lot better to have people call you than you have to call them. I have three follow-up questions. Number one follow-up question is if you're getting off the phone, right? I mean, off of the Zoom today, and then you're going to jump on to, the pond or your database, and you're searching by market report viewers. What does that conversation sound like? What's that conversation going to sound like later today when you're calling these folks?
Yeah, great question. So what it's going to depend on. So if this is like a completely like, hey, this is the first time I've reached out to this person and
Okay,
I've got them
perfect.
on that. Yep. So hey, pull them up, see that we're sending them market reports. I'm just going to tell them, hi, this is Joey with the Ryan Hansen Homes team. The reason for my call today is I know that we're sending you a lot of local information on your market, and I wanted to make sure that was showing up in the right place for you. And so I'm asking them that question first because they'll be like, what information are you saying? What are we doing? So then I can explain, yeah, it's that market report. It tells you a little bit about what's selling in your area and your home. And I wanted to make sure most of your neighbors are getting that. And I wanted to make sure you didn't get lost in your spam. So make them feel like they're included with the rest of their neighborhood and those type of things. And then as you go into that, that's able to be tailored. But yeah, so what did you think of that number there? Well, geez, if I could get that, or oh, that's way too low, and then that just spurs off on where. Okay, well, tell me about that. What about your home is so awesome? Why do you think that that's low? What do you love most about your home? And just get into it. But then, is there anything that you don't like about your home? Well, I really wish we had. Oh, okay. Well, what would it do for your family if we had, an extra bedroom or a bigger kitchen? And then just start getting them to dream as that goes. And then find out a little bit more about what their life is. What's your family life? What's your guys' schedule? What do you guys do? What's fun for you? And then, make that personal trust. And then I'm not too high pressured on, the first meeting or anything. He's like, hey, I want to make a promise to you and anybody that I work with is that I'm going to reach out at minimum quarterly, if not before. I want to make sure I'm available whenever you're available. So I'm going to promise to follow up with you. Does that sound good? And I don't really even give them a chance to tell me no because I want, you lead them to the answer that you want. Now I've made that promise. So now the next time I call them, they're like, yeah, who is this? Oh, this is Joey with Ryan Hansen Homes. We talked before. I wanted to make sure I kept my promise to you. I promised that I would reach out and I wanted to make sure that I kept that promise to you. And nobody's mad at you calling when you tell them, like, even if they're cranky right away and I drop that line, they're like, oh, yeah, you did. That's right. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you for keeping your promise. And then that guard immediately drops. And then you're normally able to get a couple of questions in. And I always start with, how have you and your family been? Or, what have you been up to lately? What's been keeping you busy? And then get into before I'm even off the phone, bring that into real estate. What is, have you guys thought about real estate lately? No, hey, interest rates are dropping and doing things. Have you ever talked about refinancing, or where are we at with that? Just because as much as we think buy, sell, in our market, our biggest lead gen or source, or our biggest source of business is past clients. And how do you get past clients is you need to keep them happy by in those time frames where they go, because it might not just be their house that sells, but they have cousins and they have relatives or friends that are going to refer you. I always say in sales in general is word of mouth is the hardest thing to achieve and the quickest thing to lose. So you
Mm,
want to make sure that you're still doing that grinding that got you that name or that business to begin with. And so many times, me personally, I feel like Sphere gets let down the most because you don't treat them like you have to almost. You just be like, oh, they'll work with me when the time's right. I'm sure they will. Well, then they see that you're busy and they're like, oh, I just didn't want to bother you. And nothing
mm,
breaks our heart more when, your cousin says, yeah, I sold with so and so. Well, you're so busy. I didn't want to bug you.
right on. So if you're, off the clock, 4:30 to 7, give or take, when do you do your listing appointments?
Yeah, so ultimately, as much as that time is structured off for family time, I try to set things up at different times. But if not, like we'll make those times available for us. But you'd be surprised how many people have a day off that they're willing to do it. There's been times where, hey, first thing Saturday morning before, we get up and moving for our day is like, hey, I'm going to go do a listing appointment at 9 o'clock on Saturday. I'll be back by 10:30. And then, hey, we can get into town and do whatever shopping or whatever our plan was for the day, kind of a thing too. Um, but most of the time, I've been able to kind of work it through that. And most people who are the most motivated want to make sure that they get the best treatment. So I say, hey, I've got this time or this time. What works better for you on Thursday? And a lot of the times I'm like, oh, I think I could make, and then they'll kind of conform to that a little bit. So ultimately, if there is no way around 4:30 to 7, me and my wife make it work. But there's a little bit before 4. She can't get off of work and home before the bus. So at that 3:45 mark, I have to be in the house for the 5-year-old who's getting home. And
Okay,
then
so
we
you have
make it
a
go.
hard stop to your day, and then you
Yep.
might pick up later after wife, potentially gets home.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So there is the
You look
potential to do something.
like you look like a young guy. Like, how old are you?
36.
Okay, 36, 4 kids, a great business. Your demographic there is what, 40s? Like what? Like it's a little bit older, right?
Yeah, yep, I would say it's definitely older.
Okay. So when you're making these calls to people, sellers, homeowners who have been in their home 7 or more years, how are you doing that? And what does that script sound like? Like, where are you picking these people up? How do you know that they've been in their home 7+ years? And then what are you saying to them when you are reaching out?
So like Remind's a good tool to be able to look at and get some sales scores and stuff out of Remind. I've just recently kind of added that to my business, started to work on that. That was one thing that I wanted to focus on to be able to kind of stay seller heavy and maybe even go more into seller heavy. The county tax records can show you how long people have been in there. So if I see somebody who's working, looking at their market reports regularly, like, hey, this person's engaged with that report, the percentage that they're willing to sell is actually going to go up and up. So then I can go in and pull that address up in our county website. It takes me 30 seconds to find out, oh, okay, they bought that thing in 2013. So there's a chance now that they may need to have had life changes, things have moved. Maybe that house doesn't fit them anymore. Maybe I see that it's a 3 bed, 1 bath home, and I'm like, oh, there's a good possibility they've had a kid or something in that time frame to maybe go out and do. Or I see that it's a 5,000 square foot home, and they've been in it forever, and they're probably elderly looking to maybe downsize. So as I make those calls, honestly, the demographic, the age, I've never even considered it because ultimately to me, it doesn't matter. I'm going to treat a 20-year-old and a 60-year-old the same way and talk and provide value to them the best that I can. And I've never had anybody bring up age or you look so young or to do anything. And I think a lot of that is just by sounding confident, being prepared, knowing what you're here to do, and just being a genuine person and letting people see that this is who you are. Everybody buys, but nobody likes to be sold to.
Yeah.
So when it comes off conversationally and you're sitting here and you're having just an open discussion, you're asking them about their wants, their needs, their family, their things, I want them to talk way more than me. I want to do more listening. So as much as I can keep them moving along and talking, it's really beneficial. And I think, especially over the phone, they have no idea how old I am. They have no idea maybe what I look like if they haven't seen my signs around or something or haven't bumped into them. So then when I do get that first meeting or whatnot, I've already set an example of who I am and expressed some kind of value to that person to get to the appointment. So we have some agents on our team who are like 21, 22 years old and stuff like that. And it's like, hey, just know that if you're starting out, like that's going to be a thing. People are going to see you and immediately be like, well, this kid doesn't even own a home yet. But you can overcome that very easily by knowing what you're talking about. If you're, that can be a pro or a con to you in a sense. But if you want to treat it as a con, it's going to be. If you want to be like, well, I don't own a home yet, or I don't do these things, like that's going to come across and people are going to know that. So as much as like having the right scripts, but I think how you deliver them, just being confident, knowing your local market, having that data ready so that you have to be like, oh, that's a great question. Let me look into that for you and I'll get back to you. That's fine to say, but if that's always your answer, they that trust erodes very quickly. So,
Mm.
I feel like the one thing that I did, especially when I first started out, is I dove into the data. I knew how many houses were on the market in Fergus Falls at different price points, no matter what. I knew exactly how long these houses were taking to sell. I was making sure that I knew all of the things that I could do and do my prep work so that when I came to those chances, like, if you think about like baseball, for instance, you get 10 pitches or 10 at bats. I mean, you hit three of those, you're really good. You're a Hall of Famer. So it's like you got to know that you're not going to hit a home run every time you're up to bat, but I want to at least have you. I want to make sure I have a bat in my hand when I'm swinging. I want to make sure that I got my cleats on. If I hit it, I can run to the base. So just being as prepared as possible was what I kind of made sure that to do. And then with that knowledge, confidence, and by the time I met them in person, they felt comfortable with me to the point where like I like to be fairly humorous, I guess. I like to keep showings light. I like to keep energy up. So at that point, like most of the times when I come to the appointments, I'm able to joke with these people. I'm able to have like a friendly conversation with them.
I love what you said because what you're sounding like to me is you don't sound like a realtor. You sound like a market expert. And it doesn't mean that you know it all. It
Mm-hmm.
means that you care to know. And you do your homework and you show up with your cleats on and you got your baseball bat with you and all of that and you're ready for the opportunities that come your way. I love that. Any other strategies or scripts or anything that are working for you right now?
Yeah, a couple of things. And one thing that I can say that I kind of wanted to touch on that I hope maybe can bring some help to you guys is especially like when it comes to like my schedule and having that ability to, block off that 3:45 to 7 o'clock if I have to be. Um, that was not easy to do. And it was honestly a real point of contention in my family life when I was always to the point of, hey, I'm growing a business here. I need to put everything in. I'm 10 toes down. Like, let's do this. And obviously, my wife is pulling at the reins, is like, hey, we need a father too. So, as
Mm.
much as like my initial instinct is like, hey, I need to work, need to work, need to work, because no check's guaranteed to do that. So, as I've grown in this, I've got a couple of things that's been able to help. And one is front loading. And I don't just front load my day, I front load my week, I front load my month, because I never know what's going to happen to my day. So if I make sure that, we have our morning power up that we do, then I immediately go and do at least three coaching calls, get those done, and then hop right into lead gen. And if I can get an hour and a half or 2 hours of lead gen in, I can make 100 dials. And then, what else does my day have to bring? Kind of a thing. And if it's appointments, that's where we want to be. That's what we want to do. If it happens to be where, oh, I've got some personal things that I've got to take care of and I've got to run some appointments or I've got kids things, perfect. That's what we can do. Or if it's just, I have nothing, guess what? It's more lead gen. Go out there and get ahead of the game. So now all of a sudden I did 250 dials today on Monday, and Tuesday something came up. Well, I guess it's not such a big deal, but if I only did 20 calls on Monday, you know, losing Tuesday becomes a real big deal. So I've always kind of been like throughout life, I'll be honest, calendars have never been my favorite. I've hated them. Any kind of administrative task in general, I'll be honest with you, like just kills my soul. So tracking things, writing things down, like that's an adaptive state that I've really had to get better at. And the biggest thing that I can say that is only in my business, but my personal life and family life is that calendar. and making sure it doesn't just reflect what my business is, but reflect my family life too. So in there, it's going to say 3:45, pick Kyron up from the bus, and all of a sudden at 5:30, it's going to be ECFE class with kids. Like my personal life is in there as well, so that people kind of know what I'm doing. Um, if that's what's the most important to me, why wouldn't I make sure that it's in my calendar? So making sure that those things are in there, but that front loading has been kind of a game changer for me because I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll front load my day, but then as you extrapolate that out to front load my week, front load my month, I've beat my monthly goals by halfway through week two. Well, then everything else is kind of gravy. Now that doesn't mean to slack because I'm a pretty competitive person. So like once I achieve a goal, I'm like, well, how much further can I go? There was a couple of times, a few weeks ago, as I was making dials and I was making connections and I was making over 50 contacts a day. And I don't know who was beating me in Brevity, but like I was number two. And I'm like, I swear it's an ISA, but like I was sitting there like, I've got to go. I've got a hard stop, but I got to make more dials. I got to beat that person. So if we all want to put in a ticket that says, I think they should put that person's name up there, that whoever is in first place. Just for one, that's awesome that you're in first place. But two, it gives us that rabbit to chase.
I love that. I was hoping that you were going to get into time management because being a top agent is one thing, right? Because everyone on this call and anyone listening in the future can absolutely work harder, right? Like it's not that you can't, but the magic is in being a top agent and having the life that you want, right? And I love what you said. Your calendar doesn't reflect your business. Your calendar reflects all of you, right? Because you are not one-sided. This isn't, just Joey the realtor, right? Like that's not a very interesting person and that's not a very interesting life, right? But Joey the realtor puts food on the table. Joey the realtor makes sure that everything that his family dreams of is going to happen, right? And all of that is important. What are your goals as we wrap up? What are your goals for the year? You had a great year last year. What are you hoping to achieve this year?
Yeah, so my main focus this year is to continue pushing on sellers and try to go for that. For business planning, I think I put down like 40 sides or something like that. And honestly, me and Ryan, we had talked as we went through the business planning, and getting 40 sides is not that difficult or that hard with, the amount of work that we put in and being intentional with that work. I went to having 50 contacts a day, but I didn't add any more work to my day. I didn't add any more hours to my day. I was just more intentional with it. But outside of like 40, we feel like then it'll really start to break into the time that I want for family. So that's why we kind of settled on that one for about 40 sides.
I love that. 40 sides, mostly sellers, more intentionality.
Yep. I would say that's kind of the biggest thing. And then another one of the big goals for me was just to get better at some of what Brivity does. So not a super tech guy. I always kind of avoided it, just because I was an athlete. I was just more interested in, doing those type of things than sitting down at computers and learning those things. But Brivity does probably a million more things than I'm understanding or capable of. So just wanting to better myself, like I said from the beginning, getting that knowledge, Brivity, Remind, some of these things are going to be the next things that I want to make sure that we tackle, just to make business easier for us. I think as life progresses, it's getting more and more technology based, more AI based, more of those things. So being able to have those things work for me so that when I come in and am intentional with what I'm doing, I can get the most out of it.
That's amazing, proactive, and it's very perceptive of you because that is absolutely spot on. We have 2 more minutes because we got started 5 minutes late due to my tech difficulties. Got a question for you. When you go for 50 contacts in one day, are your conversations different? Are they a little bit shorter? Or what does that look like as opposed to like a 20 contact day? Or is it just longer hours?
Yeah, so no longer hours. Like I said, I've got that hard stop. So everything that happens before 3:45 in the afternoon for me most of the time.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say sometimes it's a little bit shorter conversations. I'm getting into a much, when I'm having that big of contact rate, I'm probably calling some unqualifieds out of a pond and just making that a first initial contact. So it's just introducing myself, talking to them. A lot of them will be like, "Oh, I didn't sign up for anything. I didn't have anything," and having those objections and stuff like that. So just kind of handling those right away, making that promise to them. I make that promise to absolutely everybody. One of my favorite scripts around the holidays and stuff is like, oh, okay, I understand that you don't have any needs this year. I just want to make sure I kept that promise to check in on you. I know that you'll be around a lot of friends and family over the holidays. I hope you're so blessed with having everybody around. If you hear of anybody else that's talking about real estate, we'd love to be able to help your friends and family as well. And I hope you trust me enough to be able to give out my name. Would that be okay? And then they're like, oh, yeah, yeah, of course, because people love to help people. So if they're sitting in the kitchen putting mashed potatoes on their plate and they hear Aunt Susie talk about, yeah, we got to get out of our house, their ears going to perk up because I planted that 2 days ago. And then they're going to come up and say, oh, hey, actually, I was just talking to a realtor. I'd love to put you in touch. Because now that's a win for them with Aunt Susie. And obviously, them helping Susie helps us.
I
So
like that. I hope that you could trust me enough that you would put us in touch. Like that, that's awesome. Um, any advice as we wrap up that you want to give the teams here? We're in Texas, but we have a lot of people from New York, California, Florida, Illinois, just a ton of people who tune in live, and then a ton of people who listen to the recording. Anything else that you would want to share? You're a family guy. You're a beast at this, which is awesome. I love to see people succeed. Anything you want to leave us with?
I think the biggest key point and stuff for me in my business was that intentionality. And just honestly, there's nothing exciting about making the donuts. It's showing up with discipline every day. You're there and I'm gonna do the work. It's so easy we're our own bosses in real estate, but are we a good boss? So I've had that inner struggle a few times where it's like I came from working 12-hour shifts with a 15-minute break, a half-hour lunch, and a 15-minute break. And other than that, you're on the line, you're working. Well, how much of us really do that in real estate? Or do we talk to our colleague for 35 minutes about what happened last night on The Bachelor or whatever's going on? And then, oh, hey, did you guys see this? And then next thing you know, you lost an hour and a half of your day. But I mean, most realtors like to be with people. We're people. We like to talk. We like to be in front of that. So, making sure that that's focused and being disciplined in that lead gen, I think is the biggest thing that we can say is, front load your day, front load your week with that lead gen. Make sure that you go ahead and do it. How do you eat the dinosaur? One bite at a time, but you got to go ahead and do it. And then honestly, I was talking to my team leader Ryan about it. Like once I started to have that mindset and do that, it's amazing how great you feel at the end of the day, end of the week, instead of like, hey, you're at the end of the week and you're at 30 contacts maybe for the entire week, and you're like, oh, that wasn't a great week. It didn't feel great. So even when I had like 9, 10 pending at one time, I'm still able to make 100, 150 calls a day. It's just a matter of doing the work early, getting it done, and making sure that you go. So I just say discipline, intentionality, and consistency. You got to show up every day for yourself.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing this morning. That was for everybody listening back, masterclass on calling market report viewers. That was really good. That snippet in there for sure. And the intentionality that you bring to the table, it's very inspiring. It's easy to do when you're, 22 and you have no other responsibilities. Much harder to do when you're 36 with 4 kids and a very full life. But that's what we aspire to, guys. If you're 22 and this is your 20s and you're just grinding it out, awesome, dude. That's the best. A lot of us wish we could have done that, right? And if you're 52 and you have a very full life, awesome, right? Like the answer is awesome, regardless, right? Because like Joey said, you are your own boss. Make sure that you're a good one for yourself. Joey, thank you so much for tuning in with us this morning. I put Joey's contact information. Save his cell phone number. Just put Joey Minnesota. Anytime you got a Minnesota referral, if he can't handle it, he knows somebody in Minnesota who can handle it, which is really awesome. Next week, we've got another top agent joining us. So this is just a year full of top agents. I want you to be inspired. I want you to be excited. This is the best opportunity we have, not only real estate industry, but place, your local market. There are always people buying and selling, whether it's 100 houses a week, whether it's 1,000 houses a week, it doesn't matter. You just got to get your fair share. All right, Joey, awesome. See you next time. We'll have you on again to check up on those goals and how it went and what you learned through it. And Texas and everyone around, we'll see you next week. Thank you guys so much. Sorry for the tech challenges. We'll be back and we will do it better next time. Bye, guys.